up guys? My name is Mackenzie and this is week 4 out of 12 in my Design to Code series. So last week I designed a movie and TV show trailer site, and this week in this episode I'm going to take that from PSD and turn it into the front end HTML and CSS. Alright, so a few things before we jump back on the computer. First off, this is a two-part episode. So in this episode, I'm going to code the design, and in the next episode, since so many of you asked for it, I'm going to show you how to make it responsive. All right, and then one last thing before we jump in. So I get asked all the time why I don't use Bootstrap or Foundation or any of the other million frameworks out there in my videos. And the reason for that is because I see so many junior web developers, web designers, and even people who have been doing it for a while, they rely too heavily on the frameworks for the front end. And because of that, they don't understand the foundations. So to put it simply, the reason I don't use them in my videos is because I want you to grasp the foundational stuff. If you do have a grasp of that, great, go use a framework and implement it in your front end. But if you don't, I highly recommend spending some time in learning the foundational stuff so you understand how the frameworks actually work. Okay, enough rambling. Let's jump on the computer and get going. Okay, so before we dive in, let me explain a few things. I've already gone ahead on my desktop and created a directory called Movies and Stuff. Inside of there, I've created a few more directories, one to hold our SCSS, one to hold our images, and one for the compiled CSS, and then an index.html file. Then in addition to that, I've gone ahead and opened it in Sublime Text, and inside of the index.html file, I've added the basic HTML structure that we need, the HTML, the head, the body, etc. And I've gone ahead and linked to 3 external resources that we are going to use in this demo. The first one being normalize.css. That is a browser reset. That just makes every browser have the same starting point to work from. Then in addition to that, I've gone ahead and grabbed the Open Sans font from Google Fonts and linked to that. And then finally, we have the Font Awesome set of icons, which we'll use for the star ratings and such. And I've gone ahead and linked to the styles.css file. I also opened it up in Chrome, and you can see we have the hello world and hello world, so it's all good to go. So one thing to note before we get going is I'm using CodeKit to compile the SCSS that we are going to write into CSS that we're going to import into the index.html file. And this also acts as the web server, which I'm going to use for the live loading and stuff. If you're on a Mac, I definitely recommend this program. If you're not on a Mac though, you can use a program called Prepros. I believe, I've never personally used it, but I believe it's very similar to CodeKit. So let's dive in and get going. So back in our Photoshop design, what I'm going to do is basically write all the HTML for each section. And then after that, I'll go through and add the CSS to style all of it. But to begin, let's start with this header. So back in Sublime, let's remove this hello world and replace it with a header tag with the ID of top header. And then inside of here, let's add a wrapper tag. Then inside the wrapper, I'm going to create an H1 for the movies and stuff and add a class of logo. Then I'm going to say movies, amp, stuff. One thing is that I'm going to, around the ampersand, I'm going to add a span so we can style it slightly differently. And then we also have our navigation. So let's add a nav tag with the ID of main_nav. Then inside of here, I'm going to do 4 A tags. So I'm going to do A times 4 and stub each one of these out. And I'll do movies, TV shows, celebs, and photos. And then finally news. So if we save that, go back to the browser. All right, that's looking good. Let's move on to the banner. So let's look in Photoshop. So we have this banner background, and then we have this main content. So we'll want to have a wrapper around just this section. And then we have this Deadpool with the play icon and then the actual movie content. Let's jump back into Photoshop. I'm going to create a section tag with the ID of banner. And actually one thing I forgot is we're going to need a clear fix on the header. So I'm going to add a class equal to clear fix. And then I'm going to copy that and add the same thing to the banner section because we are going to float the H1 to the left and the nav to the right. All right, so inside of here, I'm going to do another ID of banner content wrapper. Whoops, wrapper. And then we have the poster. So let's make a div for that. And then we have the image tag. So we're going to link to images and the Deadpool image, deadpool.jpg. Then in the alt tag, let's put Deadpool movie poster. Then I'm also going to link to the play button, which I saved as a PNG. So I'm going to do images, and I believe it's called play button.png, and we'll say play trailer in the alt tag. All right, then outside of the poster div, let's create a new div called content. Then let's put an H2 tag for the Deadpool title. Then we're gonna have these star ratings. So what we're gonna use for that is the font awesome. So I'm going to add a class of ratings. Then inside of here, we need an I, class of FA and FA star, and then close that I tag. And then I'm going to duplicate that 5 times for the 5 different stars. And then I'm going to add a special one for this inactive star or the non-highlighted star. Let's add a class called inactive. Okay, then outside of the ratings div, let's add the other content. So we also want a p tag. Let's add a class of description. And we'll go back to Photoshop and copy this, paste it in. Then outside of there, we also have that movie info. So let's do a p tag called with a class of info. And then copy that, paste it in. One thing I want to do is around each one of these pipe characters, instead of adding all the space, since it would just go away because of the browser, I'm going to add a span tag around each one of these. And then I'm going to simply do the same for each one of those. That way we can add some spacing on either side of the pipe character. Cool, and if we save that, go back to Chrome. The Deadpool movie poster is not showing up. Let's see what's going on with that. Oh, okay. So it's in images, and I need to go into the movies directory and then Deadpool, I believe. There we go. Now it's showing up. Cool. So next, let's style. Let's see. Let's go back to Photoshop. Zoom out a little bit. So we have these 2 sections, popular movies and popular TV shows. Let's go ahead and style each one of these. So what I'm going to do is we're going to have this inside of a wrapper, and then each one of these would be a post. So I'm going to put that inside of a row, and then each one of these will be a certain width, probably like 14-15% with margin on either side. So let's go ahead and add that. So below the section with ID of banner, let's add a section with the ID of, let's say, top movies. And let's go ahead and do the same thing for the top TV shows. I'll say top shows. And while we're at it, I'm going to add a section for this newsletter section. And then finally at the bottom, we will have the footer. So I'm going to create a footer tag and say main footer. All right, so let's go back up. So for each one of these, well, to start, we're going to have this little header for this section with a title and then the view all movies. So I will add a header tag. Then inside of here, actually, let's do header with a class of clearfix because we'll need to float the elements inside of here. Then let's add a H2 tag for this and say popular movies. And then we will also add a P tag. Let's add a class of view more and say view all movies. Oh, whoops, one thing I forgot is let's add a wrapper tag around all of this. So let's tab in the header and then close that. All right, so inside the wrapper, let's go ahead and add a div called with class of row for each for this row of movies. And then inside of here, we're gonna have multiple posts. So we're gonna have a post, then each post is gonna have an image. So let's add an image tag, and we will go to images / movies / The Martian. And then one thing I left out of the design, but I do want to add is the movie title. So I'm gonna add an H3 tag for each one of these, and I'm gonna say The Martian. And then let's add a class of title for that. And then let's also add a P tag with class of post info. And let's just say like PG-13. I don't exactly know what this was rated. And we'll do like the time. I'm gonna say 109 minutes. That sounds right? All right, then we're gonna have 6 posts per row. So let's copy this 6 times, 3, 4, 5, 6. Save that, go check it in Chrome. Okay, so everything's showing up, but the movies are broken. So maybe I used the wrong name. So it's in images / movies / oh, duh. I'm missing the .jpg. You probably knew that already. Perfect. Okay, so now quickly, I'm just gonna go through. I will fast forward through this because it's kind of boring, but I will add the other info, change the movie names and such. All right, and let's open up Chrome and double check everything's good. Cool. So what I'm going to do is simply copy everything from the wrapper all the way to the bottom and paste that inside of the top shows. And then all I need to do is change this from movies to shows. And then I'm going to change the links and change the title names right now. Okay, and I will save that, open up Chrome, double check everything's linked correctly. All right, that looks good. So last thing is the newsletter. Well, second to last thing is the newsletter, and then we have the footer. So inside of here, what we'll need is newsletter wrapper div, then a newsletter inner to set the width of it. Then we'll have an H2 with this content. Then we have 2 inputs and a subscribe button. So let's add that HTML. So we have section ID newsletter. Inside of here, let's add newsletter inner. Then inside of the newsletter inner, we'll add H2 with, let me just copy this, paste that in. Then under here, let's add a div called sign up form. Then inside the sign up form, we'll have an input, type equals text, and we'll say placeholder is first name. Then I'm just gonna copy this. It's gonna be type equals email. And we'll say email address. And then finally, we have a button, and I'll add a class of button and say subscribe. Save that, go back to Chrome, make sure the inputs and everything are showing up. Perfect. Then finally the footer, let's see, movies and stuff. I'm gonna just copy the copyright info. So inside of here, let's do p.logo. That way we can use the same styling as the logo above. We're gonna do movies, add a span, do the ampersand, close the span, and do stuff. Then I will do p.copyright, and I'll say and copy. Actually, I'll just paste that in. I'm gonna change the copyright symbol to and copy, the HTML version. Change the ampersand to and amp. and then close that p tag. Then for the links, I'm going to add a div called links. Then inside of here, we'll do a times 2, and I will just say terms of service. Next line. Stub this one out as well. And let's do privacy policy. And finally, just delete that stuff. So save that, go back and check Chrome. Beautiful. Everything is showing up as it should. So now we got to take this HTML structure and style it. I'm going to open up the styles.scss file and start coding away. So I'm going to remove this body tag. To start, I'm going to set up some variables. First, I'm going to call one main. I'm going to do secondary. And finally, highlight. So let's grab colors. I'm going to use a application called Color Snapper 2, and I can just quickly grab the colors we need. The first one we'll need is this dark gray, and I'm going to use that as the main color. The second one would be this light gray. Actually, I'm just going to grab the hex from Photoshop. And then finally, we have the green highlight color. Perfect. Next, let's do star box sizing, and then I'm going to add border box. That will make it so padding doesn't affect the width of our columns. Below that, let's do HTML and body, and then I'm just going to set the font family to Open Sans and fall back just to sans serif for now. Then remember in our index.html we had this class of clearfix. We need to write what that clearfix is. So since we're clearing it several times, it makes sense to add a class for it. So I'm going to do clearfix before and .clearfix after. Then we'll do content, quotes, and then display of table. And then let's just select the clearfix after, and then we're going to do clear both. Okay, so that does the generic stuff. Let's set up what the wrapper is. So for the wrapper, we're going to do a width of 1440 pixels. We're going to do a max width of 90%. And then I'm going to do a margin of 0 and auto. That way it centers. Perfect. So you can see it's already taken effect. Okay, so let's also do one last thing. Let's add a H1, H2, H3, H4, H5, H6. That's a mouthful. And I'm just going to set the font weight to 300 because by default it will be bold. But in this design, we have the headlines as a thin font weight. And remember, I am grabbing that font from fonts.google and I'm grabbing the Open Sans font. Cool. So let's style the header. So remember, it was the top header ID. So I'm going to do ID of top header. Then on the header, I'm going to add some padding. Do 1.5 em and 0. Then next I'm going to style the logo. So back in our design, remember we have this just text logo, and it's simply a bold font weight, then the light font weight, then the bold. So let's go back to Sublime and we'll do .logo, and I'm going to do float of left. Let's do a text transform uppercase. I'm going to set the font size. Let's do 1.15 em. And then we need to style the span to a font weight of 300. Color, let's set to the highlight just to switch it up a bit. And then one thing I forgot, under the font size, let's do a font weight for the logo. So the movies and the stuff of 700. So let's save that, go check in Chrome. All right, that's looking good. One thing I'm noticing I forgot is on the, I think I grabbed the wrong code. So on the font awesome, let me search Open Sans font. Go to Google, Open Sans. Okay, so I want the light font, don't want the normal, and the bold, and that should be what we need. Yeah, so I did grab, it didn't have the font weights we needed. So let's copy this and change this line right here. Perfect. There we go. Now that's bold, and the other one, the ampersand, is the light font weight. Cool. So outside of the logo, let's add the main nav. Then for the main nav, we're going to float that to the right. Let's do a font size of 0.9 em. Let's add a padding on top. We're going to do 1 em. So if we save that, that's looking good. Now we need to style the A tags inside of the navigation. So we're going to change the color to the secondary, aka the light gray color. We're going to remove the underlines. So text decoration none. And then finally, let's add a margin of left to push each individual one over 1 em. Save that and take a look. Beautiful. All right, so that is all we need to do for the header. Let's next go to the banner. So first thing we need to style is this image on the background. So remember, I already grabbed that and I saved it as banner_background. So back in Sublime, I'm going to select the banner div, and I'll just add some space so I can see what I'm doing. So what I want here is a background with a URL. We're going to go up a directory, so /images, and then let's do the banner_background.jpg. And then I don't want the background to repeat, so I'm going to do background repeat, no-repeat. And then let's add the background size of cover. Save that and check it. Beautiful. So the image is getting cut off a bit, but that's just based on the size of the other stuff. So for now, I'm not going to worry about that. I'm going to also set the width to 100%. And let's add some padding on top and bottom. Let's do 6.5 em and 0 on either side. Perfect. So that messes things up a bit more, but we'll fix that. Let's select, let's see, we had banner content wrapper. So let's select that. Banner_content_wrapper. Okay, so for this, I'm going to do a set width of 900 pixels. And then I'm going to do a max width of 90%. That way, when it gets to 900 pixels and below, it switches to 90%. Then I want to do a margin of 0 and auto, so it centers horizontally. And then what I'm going to do here is use Flexbox. So I'm going to do display flex, justify content center, and align items center. So if we go back to our design, you can see how this movie info is centered vertically between the height of this movie poster. So how we are going to do that is using Flexbox. So let's go back and style the poster. So outside of the banner content wrapper, let's do poster. I'm going to do a width of 275 pixels. Let's do a position of a relative. And the reason we're doing that is because the play button, we are going to position it absolute on top of the poster. And then we are going to float this to the left. We need to select the image. So let's see. I'm going to add a class to this image because we'll need to select the poster and the play button individually. So let's add a class to the poster and I'll say featured image. And let's add a class play button to the play button image. All right, so let's select featured image and we're going to do a width of 100%, and that's going to go up to the 275 pixels. Currently it's breaking that 275 pixel width. Let's do a max width of 100% as well. Then I'm going to do border radius to round off the corners of the poster. Let's do 0.5 em. And then one thing we need to grab is on this. This is currently a smart object. Let me open that up. On the rounded rectangle shape, I'm going to copy the CSS because there's a shadow on there and paste that in. All I need is the box shadow stuff, so I'm going to delete the rest. And then I need to add WebKit dash and also Moz for Firefox. Save that, refresh. That's looking good. All right, so let's take care of the play button next. So the play button, do not play button, how we're going to do this is we want it centered, absolutely center vertically and horizontally on top of the featured image. So what I'm going to do is do a position of absolute. Let's set the width of the play button to 80 pixels. And then we're going to do everything based on that. So left, we're going to do 50%. Top, we're going to do 50%. And then we are going to bring it back to center by doing margin -40, which is half of the 80 pixel width. So -40 on top, 0 on the right, 0 on the bottom, and then -40 pixels on the left. Perfect. So this is looking a bit small. I might go ahead and change that. So it doesn't look like it's actually 275 pixels. Let me take a look. Yeah, so right now it's only 165. I'm not quite sure why that's happening, but for the meantime, I will not worry about that. Let me move on to the other stuff and figure that out in a second. So next I want to get out of the poster ID. Let's focus on the ID of content. Inside of here, let's float this to the left as well. I'm going to do a set width of 500 pixels. And I'm going to do a margin left of 100 pixels. Let me save that and just see how it looks. There we go. That fixed the issue. So let's target the title tag. Let's do a display of inline. We're going to do a display of inline on both the title and the ratings. That way they're on the same row. Let's do a font weight of 300. Actually, we took care of that above, so that's good. Let's do a font size. Let's make it 1.75 em, and let's set the color to white, which I'm going to use a white variable. Go up to the top and add that. Let's do hex code FFF. All right, and we don't actually have that class on the H2, so I'm going to add a class of title. There we go. All right, so next let's focus on the ratings. So this is going to be display inline as well. And then I'm going to do a margin left of 1 em to push it away from the title. Then I need to highlight each of the I tags that's in here. So I'm going to do I. Let's change the color to that highlight color. Let's do the font size 1.35 em. And let's do a margin of 0 and 0.15 on either side to give it a little space. Now we just need to style the inactive class. So let's do inactive, and we're just going to change the color. Let's see, let's go back to Photoshop, and I'm just going to select that color, go back to Sublime, paste that in. All right, that's looking good. So back in Photoshop, let's grab the color of the description as well. So outside the ratings div, let's do .description. Let's set the color to what we just grabbed, BBEBF. Let's set a font size of 1 em, and let's change the line height to 2. Go back to Chrome, take a look. Beautiful. And then finally, let's select the info class. And I'm going to do the color of white. Let's make it pretty small, so I'm going to do 0.8 em. Font weight, we're going to make it bold, so 700. Let's add a margin top of 3 em to push it away from the main content, the description. And then let's target the span, because remember we put a span around each of the pipe characters, and I'm going to add some space. So I'm going to do margin 0 on top and bottom and 0.5 em on either side. Beautiful. So if we go back to Chrome and look, everything is perfect. So we have the movie poster with the play button on top. We have the title, ratings, description, and info all vertically centered based on the height of the movie poster. Cool. So now let's move on to the popular movie section. So first thing I want to do is target these rows. So remember in here we have top movies, wrapper. I'm going to leave the header for now. Let's target this row, and then inside of there, let's do the post. So let's do a dot row, and then each row is going to be 100% width. And then let's select the post. Each post, if if we go back to our design, let's see, we have 1, 2, 3, 6 posters that we would have. Let's see, so if my math is correct, we would do, let's say, a width of 14%. So I'm going to do width of 14%, and that is because we're going to float each one to the left, and then we're going to add a margin right of 2.5%. So the reason we're doing 14% is 100 divided by 6 would be 16.66 or something like that. So if we subtract 2% and add a margin right of 2.5, it comes right under 100%. So if we save that, go take a look, everything's in the row as it should be, but these movie posters are breaking it. So we can fix that by inside of the post. Let's select the images, width of 100%, max width, let's do the same. And then let's add the border radius of 0.5 em. Perfect. Okay, so one thing I'm noticing is the popular shows is pushing up. So I think I missed a clear fix somewhere. Okay, so yeah, I'm going to copy the clear fix. I'm going to add a clear fix to each of the sections as well. So ID top movies, and then class of clear fix, and then ID top shows, class of clear fix. There we go. Now let's style we have the H2 and then we have the view more. Or I'm sorry, we have the H3 with the title class, and then we have the post info. So let's style that. Outside the image, let's do .title. So let's do a font weight is already 300 because H3, and we grab that above. Let's do a font size. Let's make it 1.25 em. Let's do a margin because it has margin by default. Let's add it on top of 1 em and remove it from the right, bottom, and left. Then let's change the color to that main color, the dark gray. And then for the info, let's do .info. Let's make this pretty small. So I'm going to do a font size of 0.75 em. Let's do the color of the secondary. And then let's do a margin of 0.5 em on either side, and then 0. So if we save that, go back and take a look. Oh, whoops. We did .info. I meant to do .post_info. There we go. That looks good. Okay, so let's next style the header. So back in our design, we have the title with popular movies on the left, view all movies on the right. So how I'm going to go about that is let's go above the dot row. Let's select the top movies and also the top shows. Inside of here, let's do a header to select the header. Then inside of here, let's select the H2 tag. Let's say a font size of 1.75 em. Next, let's select the .view more. We are going to float that to the right. Let's make a font size of 0.8 em. Let's do a margin of 0.75 on top. And let's just take a look and see how that is. Oh, you know, one thing I forgot is let's do H2 and the .view more. And both of these need display of inline. There we go. One thing I'm noticing is the view all movies is up against the very edge, but we should really have it up against the last movie poster. So let's try, I think it's 3.5% and 0. Let's try that. Okay, so perfect. That brings it in to line up with the edge of the movie poster. And then it's very tight right now. So inside the header, let's add a padding of 1.5 em on top and bottom and 0 on the side. Perfect. The last thing we need to do is back in our design, we have quite a bit of space on top and bottom of each row. So I'm going to select top movies and top shows. I'm going to add padding of 5 em on top and bottom and 0 on the sides. There we go. That looks great. One last thing I need to do is back in our design, we have this border on the bottom. I'm going to select that color and then go to Sublime. And we only want this on the top movie. So let's do top movies, and then let's do border bottom, 1 pixel, let's do solid, and D4, D4, D4. Save that, go back and check. Beautiful. One thing I'm noticing is there's more space on the top than there is on the bottom, and I think that's because, yeah, that's because the header has 1.5 on top and bottom. I really just want that on the bottom. So let's do padding of 0, 0, 1.5 em, and 0. There we go. That makes everything even. Perfect. So now all we need to do is style first the newsletter and then the footer. So let's go do that. So for the newsletter, let's do ID of newsletter. I'm going to do same padding of 5em and 0. Let's do a text align of center, and let's do a background. What color was that? Let's go back to Photoshop. I don't think it's this main color, so I'm going to select that. So it's 2A, 2A, 2E. All right, then let's check our HTML. So we have the newsletter. Inside of here, we have newsletter inner. So let's grab that. Let's do .newsletter _ inner. Let's do a width of 600 pixels and a margin of 0 auto. Save that, go back and check. All right, so next let's move on to the H2 tag. Let's style that. Let's do font size 1.75 em, just like the others. And let's set the color to white. Beautiful. I think it's breaking the width. Newsletter inner. Oh, whoops, I'm doing, okay, so this had new letter inner. So I'm going to change the HTML to newsletter inner. Now go back. There we go. Now it is 600 pixels wide. So let's style the inputs next. So we had this in a sign _up _form class. Let's do a margin top of 3em. Then we need to select the input. So I'm going to do input type equals text. Copy that, do a comma, and do email as well. Then for each of these, let's do width of 48%. Let's do a margin of 0 and 0.5 em on either side to give it a little bit of spacing so they're not bumping up against each other. Let's add height of 3.25 em, and then let's do border none, outline none, border radius to round the edges. Let's do 0.3 em. The background, I don't remember what color that was. Let's select that. So we'll do background of 404043. Then we also need to do some padding. Let's do 0.5 on top and 1.25 on either side. Let's change the font size to be 8em, and then we'll change the color of the inputs to white. All right, so if I go back, you can see it's breaking. Let me open up the developer tools and find out why. So I must have done too much padding. Oh, whoops, I meant to do, okay. So back in Sublime, I did margin of 0.5 em, and I meant to do 0.5%. There we go. So now back in Chrome, you can see the inputs are styled as they should be. So now I just need to do the button. So let's do dot button. I'm going to do border none, outline none. So I need to do padding. Let's do 1em, and I want this to be fairly wide, so let's do 4.5 em. Border radius, I want this to be a rounded corner, just like in the design. So let's do 2em on the border radius. Let's do background of that highlight color. Let's change the text color to white. Let's make it a bold font weight, and a font size, let's make it slightly smaller, 0.9em, And just like the input, I'm going to do a margin top of 3M. So let's go back and look. Whoops. So I'm getting error in CodeKit. Oh, I misspelled highlight. Height. There we go. Now if I go back in Chrome, beautiful. That is looking great. All right, guys, the last thing we need to do is style the footer. So remember, I did a ID of main_footer, and then we have the logo class, the copyright class, and the links. Okay, so let's do a padding of 2.5 on top and bottom and 0. Text align, let's center everything. Then the logo, let's see. I think I can copy what I did above. Okay, the copyright, let's change the color of this to be that gray, so I'm going to do secondary. Font size, I want this to be pretty small, so I'm going to do 0.75 em, and let's do a margin of 0 to bring it a bit tighter. And then finally, we have the links class. I want these links to display inline, so I'll do display inline. Then let's select the A tag. Let's do color of secondary as well. Font size, 0.75 em. Text decoration to remove the underline of none. Let's do margin 0.5 on left and right to add some space between the two. And then finally, let's add a hover effect. So, and hover will change the color to that highlight color. So let's save that, go back and check. All right, oh, duh. So the logo class should not be floated left. Everything else should stay the same. Beautiful. All right, guys, I think we are done. In the next video, we are gonna be making this responsive. All right, that's all for this one. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, do me a favor, give me a thumbs up, comment, and subscribe below. If you want to pick up the source files from this week's episode, go to mckinseychild.me/week-4, and I'll put the link in the description below. And be sure not to miss next week when I make this design responsive. All right, see you guys.